Well, President Trump says Cuba is next after launching operations in both Venezuela and Iran this year. The president has repeatedly discussed the possibility of taking the island nation as its communist government grapples with severe energy shortages and growing financial pressure. Previously, the president hinted at a friendly takeover. However, that tone has started shifting in recent weeks. And joining us now is William LeoGrande. He is a professor of government at American University. Professor, thanks so much for being with us. Why is President Trump, you think, so focused on Cuba right now? And where do things stand in these recent talks?
Well, the reason the president is focused on Cuba is because of his recent national security strategy document, which calls for the preeminence of the United States in the Western Hemisphere. And of course, Cuba is a state that has been an adversary of the United States ever since 1959. The president has now taken the president of Venezuela out and been able to install a compliant regime there. And now he's turning his attention to Cuba. Cuban economic situation is really desperate, so they're vulnerable. We don't quite know where the talks stand, except that they are underway at a sort of early stage. The real question is whether or not there's going to be enough common ground between the two countries in order to reach a deal.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, what are we seeing unfold here? Do you expect the president will accept a deal with Cuba like he did with Venezuela, or you think the administration will demand a total reform here, a major political change?
Well, I think Secretary Rubio has spent his career demanding a total change in the Cuban government. But the president seems more interested in trying to force an opening of the Cuban economy, giving U.S. corporations access, more or less in the way that he's done in Venezuela. And if that's the primary function, or focus rather, of the United States in these negotiations, there may actually be room for a deal. But if you're asking the Cuban regime to commit political suicide, it seems to me that's just a bridge too far.
Well, we have seen Cuba make several good faith gestures in recent weeks. I'm wondering what you think Cuban leadership is hoping to gain here.
Well, they're in a desperate economic situation. They're hoping to find some formula where the Trump administration will relax sanctions and especially lift this oil blockade, where the United States is essentially preventing any oil from getting to Cuba whatsoever, bringing the Cuban economy really to the brink of collapse. So the United States has a lot of leverage in these negotiations, but the Cubans are really set on not surrendering their national sovereignty. And so that's when you get into making political demands, the Cubans really are not open to much of that.
All right, Professor William LeoGrande, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.